Twitch says streaming.
Yeah.
YouTube says streaming.
Apparently, it's Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth.
Bugger. I forgot to change the category again. I knew there was something.
At least it wasn't the VPN.
Yeah. Is that your way of covertly checking that I've turned it off?
No, that you said about it being turned off.
Hello everybody, how we doing? I'm Ollie, I'm here with Dan. How you doing, Dan?
I'm well, thank you. How are you doing?
We're coming off a heat wave in the UK, which is not conducive to a healthy sleep cycle, and I am very tired, but other than that, I'm great.
I am the healthy sleep cycle. What's that?
Well, yeah, I mean, but right now we've got an excuse, which we don't normally.
No, other than we did the healthy sleep cycle. What's that? That is a normally our excuse. I must admit, I am liking the stream elements bit of Ollie Johnson is now streaming. It is live streaming Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth, Tome Raider, The Return of Sherlock Holmes, stories 1 to 4.
That is a hell of a title. I forgot to change the game category.
Admittedly, it could be a Like a Dragon story. You don't know what they were going to do next with those ones, like Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii.
Yeah, I suppose you're right. Yeah.
Return of Sherlock Holmes. What? Yeah.
But yeah. So we're doing 4 this week.
Yeah. Or this fortnight, as it's turned out to be.
Yeah. This fortnight. Yeah. Sorry about that. I can't remember why we didn't do one last week.
You were barely functioning.
Right. Yeah, that sounds about right.
Not well, feeling better, about to fall asleep, not well again, and across the space of about an hour and a half. So, thought not the best idea.
Yeah.
And we're doing 4 stories this week, as we felt the first 3 were a bit light, and there's an odd number of stories in this one, so it's not divisible by 3. So it is now going to go back to the usual pattern for the rest of it.
Yeah.
But we decided to start with the additional story.
Yeah. And
which turns out we decided this before we missed a week, so it is just merely a happy coincidence. And that we're doing a little extra after having a break.
Yeah. So the first story in this collection, The Adventure of the Empty House, is the first Sherlock Holmes story in a number of years, I believe. Because
yes, I do believe there was I believe is the first news story set after Holmes' supposed death, because Hound of the Baskervilles was written after The Final Problem, but is set before The Sign of 4. So
yeah.
Because Arthur Conan Doyle did not want to return to Sherlock Holmes, but was forced to retcon Holmes' death. Yeah, but by popular demand.
He was bullied, quite frankly, into bringing Holmes back.
Yes, just like they were bullied into making a more accurate Sonic for the Sonic films.
Both for the greater good, I think you'll agree.
The greater good.
Okay.
I am from a similar area, so
yeah.
to Holmes. So but yes. We start the adventure of the empty house with Watson telling us there's been many years since he wrote a story, and indeed many years since this actually happened. But he has finally had permission to write these stories from his good friend, and that they're interested in. And the empty house a lot of it is actually telling us how Sherlock survived
Yeah, this
after
really
a little.
is kind of a one-event story, and that event is the titular return of Sherlock Holmes.
Even though there is a murder to solve in it, it's sort of like that's almost. Frankly, it
Perfunctory.
almost feels third fiddle to the first and second fiddle story of "I'm back."
Watson, I'm Holmes. I love
Yeah,
that pun.
yes, what's that? I'm Holmes. Yeah, but yeah, it starts with Watson saying that, and then saying he'd now after his friendship with Sherlock, he'd taken to looking at papers for sort of stories that would have interested Sherlock, and there was one for covering the death of a Ronald Adair, the Honourable Ronald Adair, and sort of like a classic locked room murder. He was locked in his room on his own. The door had to be broke down, and he was found dead. And there was no way anyone could have shot him because they found a soft revolver bullet in him. Because while the window was open, there was no angle to shoot him from street level, and no building close enough that you'd be able to shoot him in with just a pistol.
Yeah, that's
And while
just...
after having had a quick sort of like look at the scene, he bumps into an old man who, an elderly deformed book collector, and knocks his books down. And the man reacts sort of angrily to him, and he
I mean,
goes away.
relatable, to be fair.
Yeah,
You don't
yeah.
mistreat my
He goes
books.
back. Yeah, he goes back to his chambers. It's not stated in this one. It's a bit clearer in the next one, but it appears that Mary, his wife, has passed away since the end of the final problem and the start of this one. Because in the next one, he's moved back into Baker Street and he sold his practice. So,
Yeah.
yeah, he is once again living the life of a bachelor almost, with his best friend Sherlock Holmes.
With
Historians would say
yeah,
his best friend.
historians will say they were roommates.
Roommates, yes.
Uh,
Not that I think Arthur Conan Doyle intended that as subtext, but it does fit in with what is how it is done.
yeah, like
Historically.
if you choose to read it that way, like I think it is a valid reading.
Yeah, it also doesn't help that exclamation and ejaculate are interchangeable,
Yeah.
or like exclaim or ejaculated are interchangeable. So it also it leads to the. That's something we forgot to do. We forgot to go back through, see how many times, and then have an ejaculation count on the screen.
Oh damn.
Yeah, that Watson's got home, and the book collector comes a calling to apologise about his blunt manner, and then says he's a sort of a neighbour of his, and then says, "I can tell you about 5 volumes should fill that space on the second shelf there."
And that's just
Wait,
a ruse
Watson.
to get Watson to turn around for 5 seconds. And when he turns back, the disguise is gone and it's Sherlock.
Yes, and he's started speaking in his normal voice. He's behind it. Let's see. Da, 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 da. Okay. Yeah. When he turned, it was Sherlock. So Sherlock hadn't said anything, and I was just double checking that because I was sure he had this like a cheeky remark for it, but no, it was afterwards. And Watson faints for the first time in his life.
Yeah. Now,
because of this.
this moment is unique in Sherlock Holmes, in my opinion, by dint of the fact that I'm not sure whether or not the BBC Sherlock. Oh, hello?
Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah? You there? I'm assuming someone has just knocked at Ollie's door.
Sorry. Uh, I don't know how much of that you heard.
I'm assuming you had to knock at the door.
Yeah.
So,
Did
well, you're
Did you
not going
hear
through.
anything?
Not from what was said about the knock at the door, but you were talking about BBC Sherlock.
Yeah. Oh,
Was the last
yeah.
bit we got.
Yeah. My question is, am I going to have to go back and edit something out of this?
Not that I heard through Discord. I don't know on the actual stream because my thing has a habit of picking up if I have the stream actually playing volume in the background.
Ah, right. Well, I guess I'll take note of the time and check then. About 10 minutes. Anyway, yeah.
At 11 o'clock, so.
Yeah. Right. I was just saying, I'm not sure the BBC Sherlock version wasn't slightly better in terms of Watson's reaction to this event.
Yes, I think for the time, it would have been considered uncharacteristic, and I think also a lot of the BBC one for it was because he was also doing this big reveal just as like he was saying like he sort of moved on for it and he's about to propose to Mary, which of course all of that happened years earlier in the novels, but yeah, there's still a chance that punching him would have been a valid reaction.
Yeah, I mean, learning that your dead best friend has not been dead and has been allowing you to think that he is, regardless of why he did it, like, I could understand having a strong reaction to that.
Yeah, which I think, given it says that for the first and only time in my life I fainted,
Yeah.
it is sort of like the equivalent strong reaction. And Holmes is not actually wanting to explain how he survived. But he does want Watson's help at the moment. But before they can act, it's going to be a few hours. So Watson cajoles him into telling him how they survived, which amounts to everything happened the way they thought it did until it got to the very edge of the water, where instead of Moriarty and Holmes grappling and them both going over together, Moriarty, in an uncharacteristic moment of stupidity, decides to charge directly at Holmes, who neatly sidesteps, and Moriarty flails a tear and then almost Looney Tunes his way down the waterfall into the water. Is just sort of like, well, cursing the entire way down of it. And Holmes takes a moment to realise the opportunity this grants him, because it turns out, despite saying all were caught, a couple of associates of Moriarty had actually escaped. And there were a couple of other dangerous people. It's just sort of like, hang on, there's an advantage I can have by them thinking I'm dead. So he scales a bit of the cliff that Watson had said was sheer to a small outcropping and just lies up there until after the investigation has taken place below, leading Watson and everyone else to think that he went over.
Yeah.
Because he climbed up at the edge, so there were no footprints leading out.
Yeah. Although the reason given for not contacting Watson about his still being alive was because his assailant throwing rocks at him over the Reichenbach Fall, Colonel Sebastian Moran, is, well, he knows he's alive, and if Holmes resurfaces, he will never be safe. So he waits for Moran to surface first so that he can catch him. And apparently it takes about 3 years.
Yeah, because while he's on the ledge, Moran looks over and tries to bludgeon him with rocks that he's throwing down after the investigation has taken place. And Moran is Moriarty's second in command, and honestly don't remember if he appeared in the BBC adaptation, but he does appear in the Elementary one, which he's played by Vinnie Jones in Elementary
Oh wow.
in that adaptation. It's actually remarkably fitting. And one of his uh, first interactions between him and Sherlock, because there's a lot of changes to it, but one of the first interactions is he's watching him from behind and says, "Oh, I should have known you were an Arsenal fan."
So,
Ran turn. You, Sherlock. Me. Baton. Whack.
yeah.
And just
Yeah.
whacked him in the face with it. And I'm going to leave it at that as gentle encouragement to get Ollie to watch the series I've recommended for years. It's
Yeah.
on the list, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's on the list. I have an extensive list.
Yeah. As someday it must happen that entertainment must be found. I've got a massive list.
I've got
Got
a
a
massive
massive
list.
recommended TV and the movies and the anyway, but yeah, so Sherlock has had adventures for 3 years, and two of the three people that he's been after have surfaced and been caught without his work. And now he feels that he's able to go after Moran because he's noticed sort of like his signature in a couple of things.
Yeah.
But he had to be careful because he was suspecting that Moran was watching when he bumped into Watson, which is why he reacted angrily.
Yeah.
Not the fact that, as a book collector, his books were potentially damaged on London streets at the time. And now,
I mean, to be fair, it's about as convincing a cover as you could get.
yes. At least he wasn't a full-on book goblin, otherwise he would have had to beat Watson to within an inch of his life.
Yeah. Although that would have
Yeah.
made the subsequent reunion a little more awkward.
Yes. But a lot more Blackadder like. I'm sorry about that, Your Highness, but one must keep up pretenses. No, continue the good work. Very well, sir. Punch. Season 3 of Blackadder. But yeah, so the next part of it is now evening, and Holmes is leading Watson through a strange route he doesn't know to an empty house that is essentially almost so covered in dust that it suggests it hasn't been occupied since before Holmes' supposed death. And is not 221B, but it is looking at 221B. And there's a figure, a shadowy outline going on in the window of 221B, and there's just, and Watson has a moment of what? Looks at the outline, then looks at his companion and goes, "Yeah, no, it is Sherlock, but Sherlock's right here." Sherlock has had a waxwork going on made for him, and it's in one of his dressing gowns. And they're waiting and watching, and what's sort of like watching the street and watching the thing. 2 hours go by, and Watson notices that there's people hanging about in doorways for long periods of time. And then after 2 hours, he has a shock as suddenly he notices that the mannequin inside has moved. And Holmes is like, "Do you think I'd go to the effort of getting a near perfect facsimile of myself made and then not think to have it moved about, and then it will be obviously that it is not me? Mrs. Hudson's been moving it every 15 minutes from the floor." And then while he's sort of having this mini tirade at Watson, he suddenly shuts up and pulls Watson away from the window they were standing at, and in walks a man, and with a heavy case by the sound of it, who he goes over to the window they were just at. The room has no light other than what's streaming in the window, so they're not spotted. And he starts to put something together, takes aim, and fires a shot straight at the waxwork Holmes.
Yeah, Watson remarks that he. Oh, hold on. Watson remarks that he has a sort of gun and a very peculiarly shaped, curiously misshapen butt. No, sorry, a sort of gun
Mm,
with a curiously misshapen butt.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, I know you couldn't resist. Um, After the shot is fired, Holmes and Watson attack like a tiger.
Yeah,
And subdue the man, and Holmes blows on his whistle, and moments later, Lestrade and two constables are running up the stairs. And Holmes reveals that this is Sebastian Moran, the second most dangerous man in London, or now the most dangerous man in London, because the first was Moriarty. He,
yes.
and he also reveals that Moran was responsible for the death of Ronald Adair, who we mentioned earlier,
Yeah,
and they
which
knew each other because
also explains how the revolver was modified for long distance firing. So,
it's not actually a modified revolver; it's a unique weapon
oh
that
yeah, no,
fires revolver
it's an air
bullets.
gun. I think it was said, which I think in
And
this context means some kind of a long distance rifle.
it is a
Which,
compressed air firing weapon, so it needs a lighter bullet, but is essentially silent. It's similar to the principle of of a paintball gun, just would be more powerful.
ah,
That's why it has the misshapen butt of the rifle, because it's got to contain an air supply in it.
yeah, and it uses revolver bullets because nobody would be able to figure out how a revolver was shot that accurately at that distance.
Especially as it's beyond the range of the average revolver, and no one would have heard the retort, the crack, the firing of it.
Yeah,
It or heard the gunshot would have been the easiest way to say that. But Holmes had learnt of the weapon because it was made by a blind German weaponsmith for Moriarty. So it's something he'd come across during his operation to take Moriarty down.
yeah,
And he also learnt of Moran during this, who is former British Army, Afghan campaign, India, another couple of campaigns, and is also one of the most well-renowned hunters that the British Army has ever produced. No one has beaten his record of tiger kills. Indeed, he was noted for heroism for going down into a sewer with a wounded man-eating tiger to hunt it down. But while never any outright scandal, he made the quote was he made himself too hot for India to hold and returned to London, and that's where he came into the employ of Moriarty. And Holmes refuses any credit or any mention in the case, like he's not being charged with the attempted murder of Sherlock Holmes, for example. But he is being charged with about 3 or 4 murders that Lestrade is currently investigating because he actually did them. It's not a case of no, we'll pin this crime on him. And yeah, Colonel Sebastian Moran is he's sort of I think he's like meant to have like one of the big bushy Victorian moustaches
yeah.
is as
Uh,
well.
Not quite a great big bushy beard.
Yeah, but he was in one of um, but how he knew Ronald Adair was they were both in similar card clubs and had both made good money sort of working together on it. But Adair learned that Moran was cheating, so he was going to report the colonel to the clubs, so he'd be thrown out and pay back the amount of winnings he got from the working with him,
Yep.
which is another sort of mystery of the lot room. And he went, "Oh, that can't be," and shot him while Ronald Adair was actually sorting through the money he was going to pay back to people, which added another layer of mystery because there was just piles of money around him.
Because
and none of it taken.
Sebastian Moran, I believe, relied on his card sharking to, well, earn his living.
Yeah, especially now that Moriarty was gone,
Yeah.
so he wasn't getting the payment from that. Because while Moran might have seemingly been Moriarty's second-hand man, it doesn't seem like Moriarty trusted anyone enough with enough information that they could, access accounts or anything that he used to sort of run the criminal organization. Which I think, as the evil overlord plans go, that is semi-sensible. Don't give your second in command enough information that they can take over
Yeah.
if they kill you.
Yeah. I mean, criminal enterprises like that require a certain kind of person, and that it's the kind of person that can't really be trusted with that information.
Yeah, but a lot of this is explained to Watson in the now slightly aerated 221B Baker Street, because there's a hole in the window from where a bullet went through. And we see Mrs. Hudson, who's happy, and who's also kept the rooms at Mycroft's expense in exactly the same state that they were when Holmes left, which is also a bit of a retcon because the rooms at Baker Street were set fire to in the last problem.
Yeah.
So there's that. But Holmes does inquire, actually checks that Mrs. Hudson's okay, and then inquires as to where the bullet went up, and is just sort of, oh, I'm sorry to say that it was directly in the centre of the bust, or the head of the bust that was being used for Moran. And so Holmes would have been dead if that had been Holmes. But it wasn't, so we're fine, and Arthur Conan Doyle is cursing under his breath that he has to write more of these.
He's like, oh, for fuck's sake, fine, I'll bring back Sherlock.
Yeah. But Holmes also reveals that sort of like it was mentioned in an earlier story and then hasn't sort of appeared since the study in Scarlet, really. That he has like his files on notable people and in London, and he had one of those in Moran, and that's where we got most of the information about him. So all in all, it's sort of like the story is very much, look, he's back. Okay, stop asking me, he's back. But it does also have a bit of a genuinely interesting locked room mystery that is almost disappointedly solved. Of the sort of like, yes, this gun, however, yada yada yada, didn't actually do any investigating, and he doesn't actually show off any of his party tricks, as we've referred to them, of sort of like his deductive abilities.
Yeah, that's why I thought this one was a little bit thin on the ground. Like, even for a Sherlock story, there was comparatively little meat on the bones, because a lot of it does tend to be Sherlock's party tricks.
Yeah. The story of the Dancing Men has a lot more of that going on in it, as does the Solitary Cyclist.
Yeah.
Yes, but this one not so much. It's like everything's been deducted, everything's been worked out before the story's begun. Like Holmes knows everything. This particular
story only really works if that's the case, because he can't risk like getting shot at by Sebastian Moran once to figure out who it is. Because then it wouldn't be believable that he'd be that much of a threat if he would miss the first time.
Yeah, and the plot of the air gun was laying in the final problem.
Yeah, I remember.
Because when Holmes comes to Watson the first time, I mean, his doctor at his practice, he closes the blinds for fear of an air gun, and so he, as I said, he knew about it from his investigations into Moriarty. So yeah, it's a story that is, the mystery is well almost tertiary to the fact Sherlock's come back, but he did make one mistake. It did not occur to him that
the vantage point he was using to watch Baker Street and his own rooms at 221B to see Moran or any other people working for him and spying on them and making them move would also make the perfect vantage point for Moran to actually make his move,
Yeah.
which I actually think is a weakening of his deductive abilities, which is, I believe, meant to show that he's not as great as he once was because he's out of practice.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been away for 3 years, and while he hasn't had sort of a party life, his life has been different.
Yeah. And
Like,
well,
he's
all
spent
skills rust, don't they?
Yeah, like he said he went to Tibet and spent time with the Chief Lama, which I imagine is meant to mean like the Dalai Lama, as opposed to Cusco from the Emperor's New Groove.
How did you know that was what I was thinking?
Because it was the first thought that came into my head as well when I heard it.
The Chief Lama.
Is it?
Uh, Now, you know me well enough to know that if I hear the words Chief Lama, I'm thinking of Cusco.
Yeah, yeah. No, could you imagine Cusco and a Sherlock Holmes meeting? It would be an absolute disaster. I mean, he'd be able to point to like, yeah, Yzma poisoned him. It's just all like, yeah, no shit. She was the only one who could have. No, but yes. So he's had adventures. His skills have gone rusty. He's not necessarily had easy living. He is described as being sort of a bit more haggard and a bit thinner, if memory serves. I want to say they mention a scar at some point, but that might not be new.
Right.
It might not also be in one of these stories. It might be in an older one. So
Yeah. But, as I say, apart from the actual return and the explanation, and, like, this story is a bit thin on the ground in terms of what usually makes a Sherlock Holmes story. So, it's like, there is a guy who wants to kill Sherlock. Sherlock has set up a wax decoy to catch him, and that's basically it. And you almost had to have the obligatory murder to solve just to justify having the story.
yeah, well, Sherlock wouldn't have returned to London without a sufficient mystery or opponent to do, so there had to be a crime of some sort. So why not it be a murder?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also they had to have the threat of Moriarty lingering a bit longer to give sufficient reason as to why he'd be away 3 years.
I can't remember the name of the crime, but he does say to Lestrade, which made me chuckle, "You handled this case with less than your usual, I mean, you handled it rather well."
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
he
I
can't
believe
he can't quite keep it out, but he tries.
Yeah, which on the flip side is actually an improvement on his personality.
Yeah.
He regularly insults the detectives to their face in the earlier stories.
Yeah.
He doesn't try the niceties. If he thinks you're a good detective, he will outright say it. If he thinks you're a bad detective, he will also outright say it.
Yeah, well, it's like something he said before, in that those who underestimate themselves are being as inaccurate as those who exaggerate themselves.
Yes. And it sort of comes up a bit in the next story, the Norwood Builder, which I don't think we have anything more about the empty house to say, really.
Not really. So, yes, on to the Norwood Builder. He builds Norwoods, apparently. What?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, so it starts in 221B Baker Street, where Holmes and Watson has moved back in. Holmes is now living sort of publicly again, but any connection he has to cases, he's sort of hiding, just in case another enemy decides to crawl out of the woodwork, I think. And also, he doesn't like aggrandizing himself.
Yeah.
At this point. But they're having breakfast where they sort of get interrupted by someone coming in. I can't remember whether it was this one or it might have been one of the stories. I think it's one of the stories this week where Holmes shows off his deductive that no, it's the solitary cyclist where he does that. So we'll save that till then. But he and Watson are having breakfast when they are visited a man who comes in, and he's just sort of like, "I regret to inform you that I am the much bemoaned or cursed, unfortunate John Hector MacFarlane," and then the two of them just look at each other, going, "Who the is that?" Basically, where is it? Norwood Builder. Yeah. Oh yeah. Holmes was complaining that there weren't any interesting cases going on in London anymore. That was the moment when this guy comes in. And they look at each other, and he goes to explain a bit, and he goes to look at the papers, and it's just sort of like Holmes gets a bit further in, and he finds the man who's just walked in the front door is wanted by the police for murder. And he's trying very hard to contain his excitement. When the man starts telling his story,
Yeah.
that
And this is a slightly more endearing version of what is a very worrying man than I think, I don't know how the Elementary version stacks up, but the BBC version is a little more unsettling with how excited he is to track a murder. This comes across in the book much more like a childlike exuberance than any kind of sinister
Ooh, something to do. Excellent.
Yeah. Like, it could have been anything interesting. It didn't have to be a murder, whereas, like, some other times you get the sense that because it was a murder, he enjoys investigating it all the more.
Yeah. Elementary, it plays a bit more on... He does this in part to fight off the cravings of addiction, because Elementary, how Watson comes into his life, who is Joan Watson, played by Lucy Liu, she is hired as Sherlock's sober companion to get him through the first few months of outside of rehab. So while the investigation is stuff he did before, and then he fell into drug use over, spoilers for season 1, over the death of Irene Adler. And it's like him sort of coming back to it and adapting to it. The crime work is sort of him trying to help keep him on the path to sobriety. But he does also have an interest in doing sort of like the solving of the crimes and bringing to justice is also interesting to him beyond the distraction for the craving of heroin. In for it. It's quite good, and it relies more on sort of a modern interpretation of relationship with drugs and the story, and handles it reasonably well, I would say. And also, despite the fact they made Watson a woman, there is not sort of the overarching throughout all the series of will they, won't they. They do not get together. They are not a couple. It is implied a couple of times that Holmes would happily sleep with Watson, but that's sort of in some of the earlier episodes as almost sort of like testing her.
Yeah.
Sort of work out what kind of person she is. Also, she sleeps with Mycroft, so... Yeah.
I don't know how to say this without sounding a bit... Well, I mean... I would believe there is underlying tension of this Holmes and Watson. I don't know whether I would if they were like. I mean, I haven't really seen Elementary, but I've
Yeah,
seen clips of Johnny Lee Miller and Lucy Liu in that. I don't know that I'd believe it of them.
yeah, and I'm glad they never tried to explore it in that, other than a couple of it. Well, it's sort of like Irene Adler is the woman. It's sort of like and it helps shape the early parts with other twists that come later.
Yeah,
Um, and and also sort of like
yeah.
sleeping with Mycroft. He does not have
Just
high
to
opinions about the decision. Yeah,
just to be
but
clear, I don't actually believe there is like sexual tension between Holmes and Watson in these stories. I just understand where that popular headcanon comes from.
yeah. Also, oh, Sherlock, the BBC adaptation, does sort of lean into it sometimes.
I mean, I I mean that it's kind of baity when like that one does it though, isn't it?
Yeah, but and anyway, we've gone quite off track here.
Yes, yes, we have.
Yeah, but so it turns out John McFarlane is a young lawyer who was called up by a builder, Jonas uh, Oldacre, even to sort the man's will out, and to John's surprise, everything is going to him. He's never really met the man before, um, but apparently the man was friends with his parents, who are still alive. But he wants to do it as sort of a surprise. So he has told John not to tell his parents that this is happening. And then the next morning, after he'd been over to the house till late to go through the will and sort out the documents and make up the packages and stuff, the next morning, Oldacre's housekeeper finds that Oldacre isn't in the house. I say the next morning, in the night, finds that Oldacre doesn't seem to be in the house anymore, and a large pile of hay is on fire, and they're calling over, and there seems to be organic residue in the fire. Oh yeah, so yeah, and as Mr. McFarlane was the last person to be there, he is the prime suspect. While this is going on, Lestrade actually turns up at Baker Street to arrest McFarlane, but grants Holmes a bit of leeway and lets McFarlane finish his story before he takes him off to the station.
Yeah, I like that Sherlock has banked enough goodwill with Scotland Yard and Lestrade at this point that he will do that for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's blood stains in were found at the home, and a stick that he himself forgot. McFarlane was found in Oldacre's study. So with blood stains on it. So evidence is quite damning.
Yeah.
Holmes posits an alternate theory that maybe a tramp walking past because the blind was half open.
That's the term used in the book, by the way.
Yeah, has gone past and saw the valuable documents, because several documents are missing from the safe, with others on the table, and a couple of the packets that made up are missing. And so they took it, but could have come in and taken them and killed the man. Now, Holmes doesn't actually believe this, but he's positing it as an alternative. Show Lestrade that the evidence doesn't necessarily solely fit your theory.
Yeah. Now, I think this one is quite unique in its being the one of the, like, I'm probably forgetting at least one, but one of the first stories where the case appears open and shut, and rather than actually solve the murder, Holmes is trying to prove that someone didn't do it.
Yes, I can't think offhand of another one, but well, I would argue the sign of four. There's a bit where he's trying to prove that Mary isn't involved in whatever crime has been committed to lead to her getting any of the wealth that
Oh
she's had
yeah.
through the Pope. Um, but also, the crimes all happened before she was born, so it's just getting that down. But she's not so much. Well, Mary is never outright accused of murder, if I remember correctly. I could be wrong on that one, though, because it has been a while since we did the sign of the
She
four.
certainly isn't arrested for it with evidence by Scotland Yard. So
Yeah, this is the most one ways Sherlock is essentially running to have someone not hanged
yeah,
and like crazy. Possibly, there's possibly someone. No, what I'm thinking of is no. I think in one of the earlier stories, there's someone who's arrested mistakenly, who Holmes gets a statement from, and stops before going to court. But I can't remember offhand. Again, probably best part of a year since we did that one.
yeah,
On, but yeah, so he's working to prove McFarlane innocent, and instead of going directly to investigate at Norwood, he heads to Blackheath, which is where McFarlane's family lives and where he was meant to go back, but he didn't. The reason he was able to actually get to Holmes is he ended up not making it back home and having to stay in an inn in near Norwood, in Lower Norwood. So he managed to avoid the police at home and learnt about his own guilt or presumed guilt on the train and went, right, I've got to turn in at Baker Street, because apparently it's well known enough that the moment you're in trouble, you just go, right, Baker Street it is. 221B, please.
let's see if Sherlock's in. He'll be able to help.
Yeah. And he talks to his parents, and he considers it actually a bit of bad luck. He had advised Lestrade to do it, but Lestrade didn't. And Sherlock goes, and he comes back, this might actually work against our client rather than help our client. Because it turns out Mr. Oldacre, I was about to call him Oldham, Oldacre, was a former suitor of McFarlane's mother. And she does not have a good opinion at him at all.
Yeah.
And if this opinion had been essentially if his mother had badmouthed Mr. Oldacre enough when he was younger, he would have a bad opinion of him, and therefore it would be more likely that he was guilty.
Yeah, the implication is that if it were Lestrade interviewing her instead of Holmes, it would probably be taken as evidence that she would have poisoned him to, or persuaded him to do it.
Yeah. I think Holmes does actually entertain the notion to an extent at this point that their client might actually be guilty, because he has had previous clients, not in any of the stories that we've had, but he mentions a previous client who wanted Holmes to get him off but was actually guilty. He's thinking it wouldn't be the first time, but he doesn't believe it. He feels that there is something wrong still with the situation.
Yeah.
He thinks, I'll go down to Lower Norwood tomorrow to investigate more, and that is sort of emphasised by when they're having breakfast. He gets a telegram from Lestrade of sort of like a proof of McFarlane's guilt, concrete. Additional proof seals the deal. No need to continue your investigations. And it's sort of
the proof in question.
Lestrade,
sorry, go on.
Yeah, Lestrade is depicted as sort of
Gloating.
very smug, self-satisfied. Gloating is a good word as well for it, because he feels he's got got this, and like his theory was correct, Sherlock was wrong.
Yeah, and he's finally got one over on Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah, but yeah, so it's a bit of that. What were you going to say before I started that?
Yeah. The evidence in question, I believe, unless I'm missing a bit, is the man's thumbprint on the wall.
Yes, a bloody thumbprint is found, and I've actually remembered they did actually go down the day before to review the house and look at the evidence,
Yeah.
and there were some trouser buttons found in the fire because it's actually important to this, because when they go back down, they have a look. Lestrade shows them the bloody thumbprint and is just sort of, aha, yes, I've got you now, Sherlock Holmes.
So
And
that
Sherlock's
evidence
looking
is
at it,
final, and Watson says it is final, and Sherlock also says it is final, but he means that proves he couldn't have done it. And well,
yeah, because and Watson notices that Sherlock is basically trying to suppress laughter, and because he's essentially figured it out with this.
yeah,
It's yeah, and Lestrade goes to the study to write up his report. And Sherlock looks at it a bit more and does a bit more looking around, and they take a stroll around the house for a moment. He's come back to then says to Lestrade, do you have any constables with you? Yes, I have 2 good men. Do they have good shouting voices? Yes, I would think so. Why? Just bring the 2 of them in here along with some hay. One of them bring a couple of buckets of water into this room, please. And it's just sort of like, he talks about it and reveals that he had examined that area the day before where the bloody thumbprint was found, which is where the hattock is. Because apparently part of the natural motion of picking it up would be pushing off against the wall with the thumb, and it's held as a natural thing. Now, we don't live in a society where there is a specific line of hattocks by the front door anymore. So we don't know. We can't say one way or the other how accurate this description is.
I mean, I have no reason to doubt it.
Yeah, so we're going to go with it. He mentions about how it's just sort of like how a criminal was making something that was trying to make something that was perfect more perfect. He then sets fire to the straw that his house brought in, and just like, excuse me, gentlemen, would you kindly all yell at the top of your voice, fire, at the count of 3? 1, 2, 3.
Fire!
And once again, 1, 2, 3. That should be enough. And the window's open, so the smoke's being drawn about. And after the second one, a section of wall opens, and out runs an old man who, yes, again, in a moment of Victorian writing, if they're described negatively, it means that, like, physically negative traits, so sort of like crooked, etc., etc., it means that they are also morally crooked, evil, wrong.
Yeah.
In a fantastic piece of deterministic literature and thinking. And it turns out it's sorry, excuse me one sec.
Robert?
Hello? Okay. Yeah, it's okay. Sorry, I just thought I heard a knock at the door.
Okay.
No, there wasn't. And out comes the supposedly murdered Oldacre.
Yeah.
He'd been hiding in a false a hidden room. That's what I was wanting, behind a piece of false wall.
And
And
obviously Lestrade is furious.
yeah, but the fire's put out, and the constables take the man away after sort of Lestrade and Holmes and Watson, to an extent, dressed the man down, who says he was doing this as a prank. He wasn't going to let the man go to the gallows for this. Oh yeah, Holmes also reveals because he had been making some large checks out before he died to a Mr. Falconer, and Holmes reveals he's figured out that Mr. Falconer is Oldacre himself,
Yeah.
and that those accounts will also be locked down because there's two reasons as to why he's pulled this off. One, he's trying to get revenge against the woman who turned him down when he was younger, and which is McFarlane's mother. And two, he's trying to get out of paying the debtors he owes, or the debts he owes. So he's giving all his money before he dies, or a lot of it, to a Mr. Falconer, and then his estate. So his estate is not worth much when he pays the debtors, and also it's technically the property of a murderer. So would be he'd probably be able to rebuy it later under the new name, and live there under a sort of like a fake beard until it became a real one or something ridiculous like that.
Yeah.
Or just move somewhere else entirely with his wealth. Yeah, and
Well, his defense of it was just a joke.
I wasn't going to let him hang for it. None of them believe this.
Yeah,
None of them do. And
the first
after,
Schrodinger's douchebag.
Yeah, and after the two constables take the man away, Lestrade does sort of apologise to Holmes and Watson, and then asks sort of how Holmes could figure out that with all the evidence how this was. Oh yeah, the man spites Holmes briefly by refusing to tell him what animal he threw on the fire, along with a pair of his old trousers to give evidence to suggest that that he himself had been burnt. And he's just like, yeah, say rabbits, Watson, when it comes time to writing it.
Yeah.
It's he goes, what was it that gave it away? Lestrade is asking, and Holmes is like, it was perfect. But he then tried to improve the perfection by putting the thumbprint there, because with the sealing of the various bundles of documents would have been with wax, and apparently by pressing your thumb on it rather than the seal, or would have been what they did apparently at that. And he used a pinprick of blood and one of these seals to create the impression of the thumb. Yeah, and it's just sort of like he wished to improve what was already perfect. Sort of like all the evidence pointed to him, and he then added that tiny bit too much that took it from damning but believable to obviously fake.
Yeah, because
at least for her.
Sherlock had scanned the room the night before, and he knew the thumbprint hadn't been there.
Yeah. So it shows a bit more of his smarts, but it doesn't show sort of like his jumps of reasoning.
Yeah. Well, I think this is one of the times where he says, "How did you spot that?" It's like, because I was looking for it.
Yes. Which is also one of the first lines we actually hear of the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes. That's one of his first lines in the first film.
I remember that one. I did see that one once.
Yeah,
where he spots a tripwire.
I don't think it's a tripwire in that case. It's Lord Blackwood's got his hands together as if in prayer, and he's turning towards Watson, who's charging at him. And Sherlock yells at him to see what he does, and it is basically almost a very thin icicle of glass, as it were. I couldn't think of a better way to describe it. It's narrowing and it's at the end.
Yeah.
So it's a very thin glass that Watson would essentially have impaled himself on.
Yeah, I must have misremembered that one.
Yeah, I do believe there is a tripwire, but we sort of see him disarm that earlier in the scene because it's him on his own rushing to
That must
save.
be what I'm thinking of then.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah, it's again Watson just Sherlock just going. I spotted things because I looked for them. Pay attention, everyone. Why is everyone so? It has sort of like the background rage of why does no one pay any attention?
Why can't people think?
Yeah. But yes. So that's the tale of Norwood Builder. Mum's jilted ex tries to get the son arrested and hung while going while faking his own death to get away from his debts and obligations. That actually sounds like a very, very Victorian problem that also has just continued onwards.
Yeah.
You know, how do I get out of my debts and obligations? I know, I'll fake my death. And who am I going to frame? The child of the woman who said no.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a very Victorian scheme.
Yes, especially as it involves the country home as well. And false walls and hidden rooms.
Oh, yes.
There's not enough space to create a false wall or a hidden room in the modern house. Even with, like, if it is only 6 foot at its widest. Because frankly, 6 foot at its widest is taking 6 foot out of my bedroom would probably only leave it with about 6 foot. Yeah, I don't have a large room. I should probably leave it with less. Anyway, yeah. Yes, that was the Norwood Builder. A bit of a scoundrel, a bit of a meteor story, but still one that feels like it's being written to please people who are demanding stories, not for anything sort of more than that.
Yeah. Now, I think there's well, as you say, I think you said earlier, and I agree, there's a little more meat on the bones of the next one.
Yes, certainly when it comes to sort of like showing off Sherlock's intelligence, but it's not something we can really go massively into here without suddenly sticking a load of pictures on the screen.
And I don't have any to hand to do that with. Anyway.
Yeah. Let's be honest, it probably would have taken most of the week to get them, and then get them in the right order and everything. And yes, but no, it's this one I believe is the one where Sherlock shows off sort of his deductive reasonings. Things is just sort of like he goes to Watson. So I see you haven't decided not to invest in South African futures. And says, how the devil did you know what I was thinking about? Yeah. And he goes through it because
yeah, and
Watson
like
mentioned,
when he's confused, Holmes, and I like this, said, I'm gonna have you sign something to that effect because once I explain it, you're gonna say how obvious it is.
Yeah. How incredibly obvious. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, here it is. You see, my dear Watson, he dropped his test tube in the rack and began to lecture with the air of a professor addressing his class. It's really not difficult to construct a series of inferences, each dependent upon its predecessor, and each simple in itself. If, after doing so, one simply knocks all of the central inferences and presents and presents one's audience with the starting point and conclusion. And here it goes a bit. Yeah. Now, it's not really difficult by an inspection of the groove between your left forefinger and thumb to feel sure that you did not propose to invest your small capital in the gold fields. I see no connection. Very likely not, but I can quickly show you a close connection. Here are the missing links of the very simple chain. 1. You had chalk between your left finger and thumb when you returned from the club last night. 2. You put chalk when you play billiards to steady the cue. 3. You never play billiards except with Thurston. 4. You told me 4 weeks ago that Thurston had an option on some South African property which would expire in a month, and which he desired you to share with him. 5. Your checkbook is locked in my drawer, and you have not asked for the key. 6. You do not propose to invest your money in this manner. How absurdly simple, I cried. Quite so. Yeah. And then sort of like
well, I think also in The Empty House he sort of references this. Sherlock just thinks things through very quickly. Like things just occur to him at a very fast pace. Like he'd gone through his plan to hide in the time it took him to watch Moriarty fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And exactly how and where on the cliff he was going to.
Yeah.
And after solving this sort of like going through this trifling problem, he then says, "What do you make of this, Watson?" And shows a bit of a letter that he's received in the post, which is why, Holmes, it is a child's drawing, because it's a series of pictures of what look like dancing men, stick figures, certainly.
Yeah.
In various poses, some of them with flags, most without. And is sort of like, oh, that's your idea. What else could it be? And that's what Mr. Hilton Cubitt of Writhingthorpe Manor, Norfolk, is very anxious to know. This came by first post, and he will be, and he was to follow by the next train. He should be here any moment. Ah, yeah, there it is. The bell is going. Because, of course, every time Sherlock says that someone should be here at any moment, it means that they're at the front door, because he's probably spotted them out the window. Because the number of times it's happened where it's just sort of like, where he goes, "How did you know someone's coming?" "I saw them out the front window." It's I think about 8 across what we've done so far. So it can be assumed that any time Sherlock miraculously calls that the bell's about to go, he's seen someone about to ring the bell from the angle he sits at. Yeah, and Mr. Hilton is worried about Mr. Cubitt. Is worried about the symbols because they've started to appear, and he has no idea what they are. He has no idea who's doing them, but they do seem to be worrying his new wife, Elsie Patrick, who is an American who is married recently, who he dearly loves. I'd say recently, I think it's 2 years. Who he dearly loves, and it seems to be worrying her. And when he started courting her or wooing her, she said that she has in the past had some very bad associations that she cannot share about. And if that would be a problem, then he can return home, leaving her where it is. But if he wants to continue, she asks that he promised never to ask her about it. Given they got married, you can deduce that he promised to never ask her about it. And
Yeah.
he, even with this going on, he has kept that promise. And sort of like Holmes' only real advice at this point is to go home, ask her about it, if you feel you must, and if any more of these dancing figures apply, send them to me at once, and let me know. He leaves, and 3 weeks pass with nothing happening until they get another sort of rash of letters of them, where the man comes back. And he comes back and he's encountered multiple of them. He has 3 more lots to bring with him. And it recounts that one night he decided to wait up to basically ambush the person who was leaving them and ask what was the meaning of it and such.
but his wife stopped him doing that.
Yeah.
And restrained him by holding her. He doesn't know what to do and stuff. And Holmes is just sort of like, I will work on these and I will get back to you. And the man returns home. And Holmes spends essentially the rest of the evening working on looking at these men, drawing them, consulting other things. And Watson's just essentially going, there's no point paying attention to it at this point. When he makes a breakthrough, he'll go eureka, basically. And he does, and it sends Holmes into a bit of a panic. And they're like, how's the last train to, I was about to say Norwood, it's not Norwood, Thorpe Manor. Ridlingthorpe Manor, or Norfolk gone, and it's just sort of like, yes, it left a few minutes ago. It's like, damn, we'll have to go first thing in the morning. He is in trouble. And especially as they get a telegram showing another one, I believe. And it's just sort of like, so they go first thing in the morning, and they're greeted at the house, and it is bad news. There's been murder afoot since then. And their client is dead, and his wife is gravely injured as well. And the local constabulary's opinion is that she killed him, then tried to kill herself. That Holmes's cursing sort of it's not quite his like sedentariness, but just sort of like not being quick enough on it.
Yeah.
And he goes in and examines and questions, and staff report being woken by a loud explosion around 3 a.m. Being like, it's not outright stated when they arrived there, but it's implied to be very early because they are shocked that news of this could have reached London, has already reached London. And Holmes like, no, we were already coming at this time anyway. The news hasn't reached London, so it does sort of apply. It's almost like 6 a.m, 7 by the time they get there.
Yeah. And well, it seems they are too late to meaningfully help anyone, but
yeah, the house smells, according to the servants, when they heard the first of what sounded like 2 explosions. The house also smelt of gunpowder, which are both important points, because the first one, the explosion, they said that, yes, it could have been louder than the second one. And Holmes works out, and he inquires from about a name. Does anyone know? Can't remember what the name of it is.
oh,
Is
Abe Slaney?
no, it's
that's later.
so the place. It's the place where Slaney is staying. And I can't remember. It's a farmer nearby who rents a room out, and Sherlock composes a message to be delivered to Abe Slaney at this farmer's place by one of the house staff immediately. And then he doesn't go into why he sent this message off, and he doesn't actually go into what he thinks happens here, other than he's sure that Elsie didn't kill her husband, and then didn't kill her husband, and there's proof. And then he starts to take them through, and this is like a large chunk of the story, and also Sherlock flexing, is him taking through how he deciphered the dancing men.
Yeah. And
he
one
also
thing I
casually
found
drops
interesting
that
is
he
his because I hadn't noticed before that the most common letter in the English language tends to be E, and like
yeah,
starting from
given
there.
yeah, given how language has changed, some of the letters might not be in the same place as they are in like commonality in the story for how like everyday speech is now, but
Yeah,
hasn't changed as much. So E is probably still there. But yeah, he goes through and he reveals sort of like what of them and what they mean in and how he worked out certain letters when he like had certainty and then working out sort of like, well, I've got one that's like EVE and working out what is the most likely from the three options it could be E. That's probably not correct example from the text, but it's like that sort of thing.
yeah,
And the one that caused him to panic that he got sort of like by telegram and then asked about the trains was the final one was Elsie, prepare to meet thy God.
yeah.
God. And that's the one that sent him into a panic.
Well, I mean, it's a declaration of intent to murder.
Yeah. But in other ones, Abe and the name Abe Slaney had appeared, pardon me, in one of the other ones. And he'd got in contact with a friend of his in America who I think was described sort of like as a crime journalist or well, a journalist with knowledge of the American criminal organizations and criminals in general, was just sort of like, do you know of an Abe Slaney? And Abraham Slaney, he was
One of the most dangerous
essentially,
criminals in Chicago, apparently.
yeah, he was a Chicago mob boss, basically. And yeah, or no, is Chicago gangster, and it's revealed that when Slaney arrives, he doesn't know what state Elsie's and indeed he thinks he's been called there by Elsie because the note Holmes sent was written in the Dancing Men, and in which was a language we learn that was made up by Elsie's father, who was a crime boss that Slaney worked for, and she wasn't involved in the criminal side of it, but picked up the language because, well, her father designed it. She was exposed to it all the time, and indeed had previously been engaged to Abe Slaney,
Yeah.
and he was sort of claiming what was rightfully his,
In his mind,
which
yeah.
is the sort of definitely shows the age of the story a bit.
Yeah,
where
I mean, this compilation was first published in 1905.
yes, the compilation was published in 1905, but
The
these
story was
first
written in 1904, I believe.
1903 that for these first three of them, because I believe they were published over 1903 and 1904, and then compiled in 1905 because they were released in the Strand magazine.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, because art made for the Strand that was published with them was done in 1903.
If Seb was
For
here,
these,
he would say in all caps, "We tolerated you here because we had to." It's a
yeah,
a reference to the film The Blue Max.
yeah, that yeah, this one was December 1903. It was printed in Strand magazine. So the Dancing Man, I believe, would be the last one, unless the Solitary Cyclist was published in the same issue. But yeah, yeah, and and it's revealed that what had happened is he'd left message before, and the time that the husband was restrained by Elsie to not going out, she had left a message saying that she would speak to him out the window at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is when the husband saw them, and was essentially he went down before she did, so she couldn't actually speak to him, which was basically to tell him to off back to America. She's happy now. Okay, maybe probably more polite because
Victorian England.
well, also Doyle has a sort of like a rose-tinted view of sort of the society he lived in. He very much seemed to be of the opinion that the middle class were all morally upstanding people. Or sort of like, and it comes across in that. Because I believe it's actually in this one when Abe Slaney is explaining his story. The detective
he does come across as very uncritical of society.
Yeah, the detective interrupts to inform Abe that anything he says can be used against him. And it's sort of like, he says that in the natural fairness of the British police system is the
Lord.
line. Yeah, it shows a very datedness. At the time, the British police system would hang children for stealing food. There was not a natural fairness to the British police system at the time. And while we will not necessarily execute children for stealing food that they need to eat because they're starving, it's still a very unfair system.
Yeah.
As it is. So that line has stuck out to me every single time I've gone through it.
Yeah.
It's because I've gone through these stories multiple times now.
Oh.
Yeah, so
like, the one piece of social commentary I can remember from Sherlock Holmes is when one of the villains was a not really homeless man who decided begging made him more money than his job. Like that's the level of that's I mean, if Conan Doyle were alive today, I mean, shall we say he wouldn't be writing for, like, The Guardian or anything?
Let's be honest. If Conan Doyle was alive today and was sort of transplanted with his views intact, not sort of any contact or what the world is, he would look at the. I would like to think that in certain parts he would look at the far right in horror, but it's not for sort of like views on immigration or stuff like that. It's the I had a distinct point of sort of it's the denigration of sort of their own citizens as idiots and malcontents that the far right seems to have, of sort of like our own people have been poisoned and made worse by immigration. Not so much the idea that you shouldn't have immigrants so much in London or the UK, because Victorian opinions on that did sort of segregate them a lot, even if it wasn't official policy. It's sort of like you would find the Indian communities. It's sort of like it's why the neighbourhoods form nowadays, and sort of like that. It's a holdover a bit from Victorian policy, and also sort of a stopgap for people who have recently arrived before they actually start to assimilate in. They need something familiar to then start to connect. And unlike Brits, when we go to say Benidorm, we just turned it into an English city. Yeah, it's just sort of like people will talk about how the argument's sake, the Indian community doesn't assimilate. And it's just like there is a small area where they keep Indian traditions alive, but a lot of those people do not solely
live or socialize or work within that area. They go to football matches. They go work outside of there. They have friends who are not from like the community heart, the heart of the Indian community there. There's a lot. And a famous quote, there are some parts of London where there's Sharia law, or the entirety of Birmingham, as Fox News once reported. And it's just like, it's just outright fabrications.
Yeah.
No, if Arthur Conan Doyle, with his views from the time period, outright transplanted now, it definitely would fit in with modern conservatism. Though I would say he probably would have some complaints about that system as is. Mostly because it shits on the middle class, and he seems to think the middle class is sort of, like the epitome almost of like English fairness and purity. Almost, it's like, yes, there are royals and the aristocracy, and they are better than the middle class, but the middle class is where the nice gentleman, the proper gentleman lives.
The good honest English.
Yeah, and the heart of society is what sort of comes across, is the middle class. And of course, modern economic policy. Yeah, and modern economic policy seem actively trying to stamp it out. You're either poor or you're aristocracy. We've gone off, and we have said we would try and not talk about politics on this unless it was relevant to the actual text. But
I mean, like it span off from talking about the text and social commentary. I think that counts.
Yes. But anyway, so what happened that Holmes had deducted, because the first gunshot was louder, he deducted that it was in fact two gunshots fired near simultaneously, and the second one was Elsie essentially in the throes of the man she loved had just been killed by another man who was there to try and claim her as his wife. She shot herself, trying to kill herself, after closing the window to essentially bar the man entry.
Yeah.
But because the window was open, the gunpowder was blown into the house, and that helped Sherlock realise that there must have been a third person shooting from outside. So that's what happened, and the man confirms it, that he shot at roughly the same time as.
Yeah. Once they had him, he sort of loses all reason to lie. So.
Yeah, it's especially because he's essentially loses all the wind from his sails the moment he's told that Elsie's in a rather bad state, that she's been shot, because last he saw she was fine, and of course he also had a note which was basically her saying come over, and he thinks that she's been won over now that her husband is dead, and he maintains that was self-defense because he shot first. Now, we only really have his word for that, and given that the two shots were so close together, it sounded like one shot to the witnesses in the house.
I mean, it could be believable as both of them thought the other was going to shoot and therefore shot. Yeah,
we can't say for sure is what I was trying to get at. So is that, and they return home, and Watson makes a note like sometime later, or at the end of it, saying that he'd made notes later saying that Abe Slaney had been sentenced to hang, but his sentence was reduced to penal servitude because it was just that Cubitt had fired the first shot.
Yeah.
And Elsie recovered from her injuries, but has lived the life of continued to live as a widow. A widow, yes. I was thinking, is it widower or widow? And it's like, no, a widow, but has spent her life helping the poor and administrating her late husband's estate. 8. Which is quite an impressive recovery, given that the bullet was described as entering the front lobe of her brain.
Yeah, no, like I was gonna say, I don't think that. I think a full recovery should be off the table with that, shouldn't it? Especially with Victorian medicine.
Yeah, it's sort of not. It's explained that she continues on as a widower and helps the poor and maintains the estate, but it doesn't go into any more detail than that. At which it could be like she is now, like, emotional control is absolutely shot, which is why she might be continue as a widower, because she can't move on. She has lost the ability to sort of move on from grief. I'm trying to remember, because there was a railroad worker, can't remember his name, but they used explosives to set the spikes to hold the slats in place, or the rail, and one catastrophic disaster, he had a spike. One of the explosives went off, and the spike went through his brain, and like from under the chin to out the top of his head.
Oh yeah, I heard about that.
He survived that, but he now couldn't control his anger as such. So it's just sort of like, yeah, he had a spike through the brain. If that is sort of the worst he comes out of that,
I'd say he's been damn lucky.
Yeah, so it's possible. I'm not sure when that was, but I think that was before this was released. I think that might have been in like the 1880s in America, I want to say. But it's stuff like that. There's a surprising amount of things that the brain can survive and sort of adapt around. But she would not have been the same person.
Yeah.
And, well, to an extent, like modern medicine now doesn't know exactly how each person will react after like having a bullet removed from the brain, like what effect it will have on there. Our idea of how the brain works is still
very limited.
An educated and informed guess is the best way to put it. I would not use the word theory, because if I use the word theory, even scientifically, it will at some point be attacked as, well, it's just a theory. My theory is just as valid. It's like, no, this theory has scientific evidence to it. Your theory is a book written by a bunch of people over thousands of years. That does not make sense. Sorry, definitely a tangent I should not be going on.
No, it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, but
for the record, I don't believe I ever agreed to the no politics rule.
Yeah, it's something I think we discussed during Hound of the Baskervilles.
Yeah.
Because J.K. Rowling and Harry Potter came up.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
I think I said I didn't really want to talk about that because I didn't see much point.
Yeah, but anyway, so yes, woman has miraculous recovery and then devotes her life to maintaining the estate of her dead husband. I would say probably actually a sign that she didn't come out of it all too well.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then the person who killed her husband is now in penal servitude, which prison labor, which is essentially slavery by another name.
Yeah.
In many ways, apart from sort of like ostensibly it has an end date.
Well, yeah, provided you survive the conditions for long enough.
Yeah, it's not said if he like I think it would be a bit late for him to be sent to Australia, certainly.
Yeah.
But Snow doesn't mean he didn't get sent somewhere else to work on like a big project or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, Abe Slaney not having a very good time of it afterwards. But given he was also described as one of the worst criminals in America,
You know,
he had it coming. he had it coming.
He only
only
had
had
himself to blame. Yeah. Musical references, we got him.
Yes, we got one in, and it was in the one about dancing men, and it wasn't ABBA going with "This Is the Dancing Queen." Talking about
Yeah. Just
But
in case this
I will
is your
admit-
first episode of Tome Raider, like musical references are a thing we do on this channel.
Yes, the same also happened with Assassin Sunday.
Yep, yep.
We're acting as if I didn't start this one at a point where I was talking about a recommended elementary to you, and then go into a very quickly made up couple of lines of the Mikado's "I've got a little list."
Ah, yes. I remember that like it was yesterday. It was an hour and a half ago, mate.
Yeah. But yes, so that was the mystery of the dancing, the adventure of the dancing men. Sherlock now has another fictional language to add to his language of codes and ciphers monogram that he wrote in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
yeah.
yeah, I like that one. Well, again, it's not okay. As we'll see for the next one, 3 out of the 4 stories this week have something to do with marriage or the lack thereof being the impetus to murder or attempted murder.
Yes.
So
Yes,
there is a theme this week
Yeah.
in 3 out of
marriage is
4 stories.
Yeah, marriage is a major plot and is a device to get what they want in this one. On though it is slightly different to the last two, but we'll get to it on that.
Yeah. So, the solitary cyclist.
Yes, Sherlock and Watson Sherlock's messing about with sort of beakers, chemicals, and stuff like that.
As he
Doesn't want
does.
to be interrupted. Yeah, as he does. Doesn't want to be interrupted, but he is interrupted because a case has arrived or a client has arrived asking for advice.
And will not
Nice.
leave.
In much the same way as I believe Mary actually arrived, and just sort of like they turned up.
Yeah.
This is a Miss Violet Smith of Farham, Surrey, not Sunny. It may occasionally be sunny in Surrey, but it may not. But it probably won't be right now, given it is 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah. Ah.
Yeah, but because her life has taken an unusual turn of late for her and her mother. Her father recently died, and meaning that they are not well off. But a couple of people have turned up put an ad in a newspaper inquiring about them to get in contact with a lawyer, a Mr. Carruthers and a Mr. Woodley, which is just amusing to me. A side note: the name Carruthers is the name of Mycroft's butler in A Game of Shadows, the second Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes film.
Oh.
And
I don't think I've
Mycroft
seen
in that you haven't by previous things, but Mycroft in that is played by Stephen Fry.
Oh, I have seen clips
And
of
also-
that though.
Yeah, and it's also sort of like when we see Stephen Fry in his own home, or Mycroft in his own home in that one, he prefers to be naked, which is not good for Mary Watson. who is staying with him for at the first part of it.
Well, I've mentioned before, the audiobook I listen to of these as I read along is read by Stephen Fry. So,
Yeah, yeah. But Mr. Carruthers and Mr. Woodley. Mr. Carruthers is described as quite pleasant, but Mr. Woodley is described as a bullying cur, which is quite strong language actually for this.
As you were
they've
saying
recently,
that, I imagined stronger language before you said cur.
yeah. But they both recently come from South Africa inquiring after them. Apparently on behalf of Violet's uncle, of Mr. Ralph Smith, who also has recently died in poverty, but wanted to see that his relations were provided for. And she and her mother are a bit suspicious at first because like they haven't heard from him in years, and he didn't seem to particularly care for them. But ostensibly, it's because he learnt that his own brother had recently died, and therefore they would not be looked after for. And a man realizing it's the end of his days and wanting to make reparations and repair relationships is sort of the implication as to why this is going on. Yeah, it's 25 years since they last heard a word from him when he departed for South Africa. So to make good on this promise that they would see them well looked after, Carruthers employs Violet as a music teacher for his 10-year-old daughter at the rate of £100 a year, which is about twice the going rate at the time.
Hold on.
I
Just gonna pull up the old inflation calculator. I should have thought to do this sooner.
Yeah, to be fair, this is the only story that actually involves money as being a relevant plot point. It's sort of like a total of what would be interesting.
And this was
another part
1895, wasn't it?
Published in 1893, I believe, set in 1895. So 1895 will be what we'll go with.
£11,673.26.
Yeah.
In today's money.
Yeah. This is not including the fact that for 5 days of the week, she, 4 nights, 5 days, because she goes home over the weekend to look after her mother, that she will be living with Mr. Carruthers and his daughter. So she's also got board as well. Not bored as in, I'm bored as in room and board.
BOARD. Yeah.
Yeah, and things were going well with this, and she until Mr. Woodley decided to stay for a week, in which he made oafish advances and boasted about how she would live a life of luxury if they were to marry. He even grabbed her and demanded a kiss. Which actually got him thrown out by Mr. Carruthers.
I mean, that's. I mean, you know, that would have been scandalous back then. Never mind today.
Yeah, it's all like, especially like given with how Sir Arthur Conan Doyle has written sort of courting within the stories, like take Watson's own courting of Mary. They're basically engaged before they kiss, even though they're clearly deeply in love. Admittedly, their engagement only lasts about 3 weeks, so there is certainly a greater speed to engagement to marriage, and also from starting wooing to engagement.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want to gets engaged to Woodley because he's a cur, and also she is engaged to be married to a partner in an electrician's company, I believe it was.
Ah.
But yeah, yeah, she's engaged to a man named Cyril Morton, who's an electrical engineer. So I think we just call them electricians nowadays for the most part.
Yeah.
Uh, Actually, probably a bit more than that, but I'm not going to go through into the whole thing. So yeah, what what she's why she has come to see Holmes is that for the last couple of weeks, when she cycles to the station to then go back and see her mother, and cycles back, she has spotted another man along the route with a big beard, a great big
A
bushy
great
beard.
big bushy beard.
Seems to be following her, and is just sort of like essentially the classic sort of unsubtle following. Stops when she stops, goes when she goes. Tries to keep the same distance. If she starts to move back towards them, he'll turn around as well. But she's not been able to identify him. And the one time she tried to sort of trap him by after rounding a corner and then stopping out of sight so that the man would cycle past her, he doesn't follow. Oh, and after a couple of minutes of waiting, she looks round and the man has vanished. And this is causing her to worry, of course.
Yeah. Well, I
Yeah,
mean, she's being stalked, and her stalker
yeah,
knows she's on to him.
yeah, yeah. Holmes at this point inquires as to whether she has any more admirers other than Mr. Woodley, if he can be styled as such. And she says, well, she's engaged with her. It might also be a bit of a sort of like a flight of fancy, but a woman always knows, and she half suspects that her employer, Mr. Carruthers, is also taken with her.
Yeah.
But she also describes him as being a perfect gentleman. And yeah, she leaves, and Holmes sort of like, it's strange, a man who can play twice the going rate for a music teacher doesn't keep a horse and trap on hand, and some things, and he actually sends um he sends Watson to actually keep an eye out to like, because the coming day she is returning to Mr. Carruthers, so the man will appear and follow. Oh, and to get evidence, and Watson doesn't do a good job of it in Holmes's opinions. Watson confirms that the woman's story is true, that she is indeed being followed. It is along a certain tract of road, not the entire route, unlike what we may have suggested. And he confirms that he's seen the man. He finds out what the hall is like, because it's while passing a hall, all that this man is there following her, and he doesn't get a good look and gets these things and goes to a London property office to find out who is currently renting the hall, and goes back to Sherlock, and he's feeling quite sort of like important and like, I've done things, and Sherlock essentially brings him back to reality, that he has essentially brought them no new information or anything of use of the new information he has, because he's only like, who's staying at the hall? This Mr. Williamson. And it's just sort of like, okay, we've got a name that tells us exactly nothing, and just sort of like, you didn't get to look at the man, you didn't hide where you could actually get a look, or possibly even ambush him. You just got a more distant look than even our client gets of him. So he goes down the next day in Surrey, because he's just sort of like, if you want to know something about what's going, go in the village, go to the nearest pub. This is the heart of country gossip. And he comes back and is a little kinder to Watson after his own experience in that, because he comes back having been in a fight.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah,
I do like how Watson gets a little bit pissed off with how like um well basically how negative Sherlock is about him. It's like you gained us nothing we didn't already know. But it's like, but don't worry about it. Yeah. It's like, what have we
yeah,
learned? That the story is true? I never doubted it. That there's a connection here between these two things? I never doubted that either.
yeah. It's a sort of like there is one thing in between that is important, and between the two of them going down to Surrey, that's a mention. Um, Miss Violet writes that Mr. Carruthers has actually proposed to her, and she's turned him down because she's already engaged to Cyril Morton. And Holmes goes down, and he learns a bit about Williamson from talking with people in the pub. That he is a priest who behaves very unpriestly. And then he gets into a fight with Williamson, who was in the pub and heard the whole thing, and is not happy with that he's being inquired about. Holmes does come out of the fight the better because he actually has some training in fighting, a combination of boxing, and he mentions a Japanese art. I can't remember which one of her, and of fighting as well.
Okay, the thing he mentions in the empty house is called Buritsu or Buditsu. I don't know if it's a real system of Japanese wrestling, but I mean, I haven't looked into it, but yeah, he knows that. And in this occasion, he mentions, and I quote, the good old British sport of boxing.
Yes, which we had an establishment earlier on that Holmes is a skilled boxer because in the Sign of the Four for one of the murder victims,
Yeah, I remember that.
they actually get let into the place. You trust them because the groundsman, I think it is, the person who's barring their entry to the estate, is someone that Holmes has actually boxed against, and they're good friends because of it.
Yeah,
As much as Holmes had a good friend before Watson, and it was
yeah,
just sort of like, the legendary left hook Sherlock Holmes, basically.
yeah.
So Holmes coming out of this fight the better is like Holmes is like, I'm coming back with a bruised face. He went home on the back of a cart.
You should see the other guy.
Yeah. But the other but perhaps the most important piece of information I was learned, but it's sort of glossed over at this point, is that Mr. Woodley is a regular weekend guest at Williamson's and rented accommodation, which is Charlington Hall. Or yeah. So there's another letter from Miss Violet waiting for them when Sherlock gets back. After the rejected proposal, she's now finding the whole situation quite awkward there, and has the end of the week will be the termination of her employment. She's leaving; she's not been fired, but Carruthers.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's made it weird.
Yeah, it's not just due to Carruthers' proposal, but Mr. Woodley has returned as well.
Yeah.
He's back at the house, and that's just sort of a double bad thing. Like, if there had been some time before Mr. Woodley came back between the proposal and that, she might have been inclined to stay on, but Woodley is a cur, so no.
Yep. Nope.
Get out. She is leaving. This has got Holmes's spidey sense tingling that something's wrong. So come Friday when she would normally leave, he and Watson are to be in Surrey and to keep an eye on her while she's riding Mr. Carruthers' trap to the station, which I imagine is some form of cart. I can't tell you what kind offhand, but they make a mistake. they don't take the first train to Surrey, and she, in her desperation to get away from Woodley and the awkward situation, has decided to take an earlier train than she usually does. So when they arrive at the state, like are starting on their route to get there, to then be in place to watch over when she's on the way over, she's already part way through her journey, and
Yeah.
they spot her on the road, and it's just sort of like, and then they come upon her trap, which is now just the horse and the cart. There's no driver, and she isn't on it either.
No, there
And
is
bad,
an
bad.
unconscious man.
Yeah, they do come across the unconscious driver in a moment, but Watson has
Seb's here.
manhandled.
I like how generic the names of the most Sherlock stories are. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
well,
So,
I mean, these were all written in. When was it you said, Dan? 1903?
yeah, 1903. It turns out this one came out in the US in 1903, in the UK in 1904. Or this specific story.
Really? They got it before we did.
Yeah, I think it's only by about a week because it came out on Boxing Day. So I think ours came out on the New Year.
Ah,
Or, yeah.
he's picturing other titles.
Yeah,
The Unhappy Butcher, The Unclean Boss, The Loathsome
More commonly, the Unclean Bus, or as it is more commonly known, the Bus.
Rock.
Yeah. Or a bus.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're actually accosted because they're now Holmes and Watson are on the trap, and they're going back the other way because it's quicker than them walking. And Watson helpfully knows how to control a horse.
Yeah.
I mean, he was in the military, so it makes some sense.
Yeah.
And they're actually accosted by the man in the beard, which turns out to be Carruthers. No, he's not a giant wasp, and this is not an Agatha Christie novel. All of a sudden, in the Doctor Who episode,
The
but
great big bushy beard turns out to have been false. And there is an unconscious man in the cart, I seem to believe. I seem to recall.
He was not in the cart. He was slightly further down the road. He was the boy who was driving the cart.
Ah. And
so
they're like, well, we can't do anything for him right now. We gotta move.
To leave it. Yeah. Just like, he hasn't removed the beard at this point, but they know it's Carruthers.
Yeah.
As they're going on, and he seems to know what's going on, and is getting them to go on to into Charrington Hall's ground, and is leaving them, and they hear a woman screaming, and he's not in a good state, and there's running, and they're going on, and they see Woodley is holding her close, and Williamson is there. She's actually gagged at the moment, and is just sort of like, Carruthers, there you are. May I introduce you to the new Mrs. Woodley?
Yeah.
And she's happy. Williamson has just essentially snapped closed the Bible when they've come into sight as well, and Carruthers unmasks himself, pulls out a revolver, and shoots Woodley. Just sort of like, the man has no chill at this moment.
Yeah. And it's like, he says, I remember the exchange. He goes, well, they just said they're married, as if that, he's just actually murdered her. And he says, she's my wife, and he goes, no, she's your widow.
Yes. He actually gets sort of an almost action movie line there.
Yeah.
Which feels a bit incongruous, I'll be honest, but it is a declaration of intent in that line.
The solitary cyclist, if this is set in London, he's clearly the antagonist.
Yeah, no, the solitary cyclist is the client, Miss Violet, who is the one just been forced into marriage. Yes, Miss Violet Smith.
Yes.
Um, Holmes, after the shot, basically the gun is taken off of her, and then he keeps talking. Is just sort of like, I doubt this marriage is legally binding. Is just sort of like, is sort of like, but priest is like, you've been defrocked. Once a member of the clergy, always a member of the clergy. It's just like,
I
it's
mean,
not
that's
actually the
anecdotal.
case.
Yeah.
If
And
you have been defrocked, you have been thrown out by the clergy.
yeah. And also, like, even if you have a marriage license, this was clearly obtained dishonestly, and that is a crime.
Yeah. And as it goes on, the amount that Williamson and Woodley are going to be charged with is just adding up.
Yeah.
Because it is. And Carruthers is what he's going to be charged with actually goes down because it is revealed, because Watson, of course, doctor as well, attends to them after they go into the hall, and it is revealed that Woodley will survive his injuries. Carruthers is perfectly determined to go up and finish the job of murdering him at this point. It actually has to be pulled down. And Watson says, "You probably wish you hadn't actually have shot him by the end." By the end of sort of all of this, is just like, I bet you wish you hadn't actually shot him. It's just sort of like, sort of, but no.
You would
And
think so, but no.
yeah, um, so yeah, the it goes on, and the plot was one of those two. Both of them did know her uncle Ralph in South Africa, and the plan was one of them would marry her, and they played cards on the boat trip back to England to determine which one it would have been, and Woodley
Which
won
is
that.
a very
So he
normal
would
thing to do.
Yeah, given that the plot was they are marrying her because she is Ralph's only next of kin. Ralph's, I'm assuming her mother is not Ralph's sister, so it would be her rather than her mother who inherited the wealth. But actually, it outright says that Ralph is the brother of her father. So yes, so she is the only next of kin because he himself didn't have any kin. And he was actually fabulously wealthy, not destitute as it happened. So the plan was basically marry the next of kin, get the money, and they'd split it between them.
Yeah.
And they Holmes sort of manipulates Williamson a little bit to get him to reveal a couple of details by implying that he also came over from South Africa with them. And he just corrected the bits that Sherlock got wrong on to spite Sherlock and go, see, you're not so smart, failing to realise he was playing directly into Sherlock's hands. And to get the information he wanted. And of course, Woodley didn't do it, and Carruthers tried to get Woodley to back off, as it were, because Woodley was repulsive to Violet, and sort of said, "Fine, you propose, and then split it with me." And Carruthers agreed, because he's actually grown quite attached to having a woman around the house with him, and he enjoyed her company, and generally he cared about her. He might not have loved her romantically, but he seemed to genuinely care.
Yeah.
Which is why he was happy to shoot with Woodley slightly earlier. But she turned him down because, of course, she was already engaged to someone she did love. So they but the plan became more afoot and had to be enacted quicker because they finally got the message that they sort of been waiting for, or which is that just sort of he died or he's passed away. Okay, so the uncle wasn't dead when they came over, but he is now. So she's about to come into the vast inheritance. But Yeah, but because of his regrets about the plan, Carruthers has been watching over her as she passes Charrington Hall to make sure that Woodley or Williamson didn't grab her, as it was, but failed on the final one. But the marriage is dissolved. All three of the men are arrested and taken away after the local constabulary arrives. And Watson has notes that later on that heavy penalties await Woodley and Williamson, but Carruthers will only get a few months due to Woodley's less than savoury reputation. And
The inherent fairness of the British justice system.
yeah, that line. Yeah, and the marriage was indeed void because of Williamson's being unfrocked, so therefore having no authority to do the marriage. Yeah, and Miss Violet Smith is indeed gets married to her fiance, whose name currently eludes me, Cyril Morton, who is described as a senior partner in a Coventry electrical firm when Watson gives his update. So it is implied to be sometime later, like they've had time to get married, Woodley's had time to recover, so he can then start, and then they've had time to try them afterwards. So it's a few months to a couple of years have passed between the end of the story and Watson giving sort of the update, which is sort of and they lived happily ever after.
Time to recover from getting married. No, from injuries.
Yeah, from being shot, because Mr. Woodley was shot with a revolver, and then and then Mr. Carruthers was perfectly willing to finish the job when he found out that Mr. Woodley had not, in fact, been killed.
Which was very lucky because, from my understanding, revolvers do not, in fact, fuck around.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's a bit of a shame. Sorry, I'm just looking at some of the information on adaptations of this episode, and there was this story was adapted in 1986 for a BBC series with Peter Cushing as Sherlock.
Ah.
Unfortunately, this is now a lost episode of TV.
Oh, that is a shame.
It's from like the infamous reusing of footage and stopping storing it periods that also affects some of early Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Though we did recently recover one of those lost Doctor Who episodes.
Really?
I believe it was a First Doctor story.
Ah. Peter Cushing just
Actually,
sneaks into a lot of things. Doctor Who, Sherlock.
Yeah, he was in both of them, as both the Doctor and Sherlock. He did a fair few Sherlocks, actually. I believe an adaptation of Hound of the Baskervilles, with him as Sherlock, had Christopher Lee as Henry Baskerville.
Ah, cool.
Yeah, because I remember seeing a clip on a program about Christopher Lee, I believe. I think Christopher Lee is also the only actor who has played both Sherlock and Mycroft on screen. It might not be true on stage, but yeah. Really, he only needed to do Moriarty on top of it, and he would have had the hat trick of the three smartest men in Arthur Conan Doyle works.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also he would be terrifying as Moriarty because he is very good at playing a villain as Christopher Lee.
Indeed. Right.
Yeah.
Well, that's about all there is to the recapping and discussing things. So, what did you think of the 4 stories this week in general? Marriage being a pretty prevalent theme in all apart from the empty house, unless, of course, Moran and Moriarty had a relationship we weren't privy to.
They were roommates, I tell you.
Historians will say they were roommates.
Yeah. I will comment that it is slightly funny that shortly after Sherlock's revealed to be alive, because well, Seb wouldn't have heard this earlier on, but it seems Mary Watson died between the final problem and the adventure at the empty house. So Watson is single again, but by the time of the Norwood Builder, he's moved back into 221B Baker Street, and he and Sherlock are roommates again. They're roommates.
I wish I was there when
Yeah.
it was a trip to be able to tell people I appeared in a William Hartnell episode of Doctor Who. Yeah, that would have been cool.
Yeah. Yeah, there's been a few projects at various universities to recover lost episodes. Or in the case of Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor, one of his episodes, they had the audio for it, but they didn't have any of the visual, like the film for it. But they had an idea of how it was meant to go based upon the audio, so they and script directions. So they recreated it via animation, and it was interesting. And there's one lost episode that the only clips of it we have are bits that were deemed by Australian censors to be too much for their audiences, so were cut out. And the great irony is, all we have are the bits that the Australian censors cut out, and it is literally those very pieces. There is a theory that somewhere the royals have a vault with a complete collection of it, because it has been said that the royal family were great fans of Doctor Who and rumoured that they had their own private copies of it delivered by the BBC so they could watch it. But
I mean,
I don't
you'd
know
think
how
that would have
much
come out like more concretely if that were true.
I don't. I think the only thing that may be concrete about it is that various royals over the years have been fans of Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Anything more than that, I think, is wishful thinking.
Yeah, because like you'd think by now they would have allowed the BBC to take them back to recreate and re-release them, like for the goodwill that would bring them, if nothing else.
Yeah. Yeah, and also just maintaining film that old is not easy, and it would probably be cheaper to let the BBC be in charge of it for the royals. Because the royal family doesn't stay rich by spending their own money.
So this is all that remains of the Australian clip of that Doctor Who episode is a 5-minute tirade in which the Doctor calls Davros a fucking wanker.
No, that would have been perfectly acceptable for Aussie TV. I say this with Australian family members.
Oi, Davros, you cunt.
They can swear. Though I will admit they are less fond of cunt than the Scottish are. But yeah, going back to these stories before we go off on another Doctor Who aside,
Yeah.
I'd
Wrangle.
We'll call them. Yeah. The stories were interesting. I felt it got better as it went on, because the first one was just sort of like, okay, look, I brought him back. The second one doesn't show off what a lot of people like about Holmes so much. The third one does, with two sort of paired deductions of him showing it, or like, oh, so you've chosen not to invest, and then also solving the cipher.
A couple of these, and I think the solitary cyclist is sort of one. Sherlock and like Holmes and Watson feel like guest characters in someone else's story.
Yeah,
And that's very much that can happen with the mystery format because they are by definition solving problems for someone else. But
yeah. I
like
would also say
you're
you
very
continue.
aware of it for the Norwood Builder and the Dancing Men.
Mm,
Well, you're
yeah,
more aware of it for the Dancing Men than Solitary Cyclist is what I meant. The Norwood Builder does present an interesting problem for Holmes to solve in getting evidence to exonerate his man. And the Dancing Men, is a good lesson in code breaking for the time, I
yeah,
imagine.
yeah. I get the feeling with the Solitary Cyclist that for a bit of it, it's meant to make Holmes slightly more unlikable than he is by default, because they have him actually get quite angry and be quite dismissive of Watson's abilities
Yeah,
for a chunk of the story, which is not something that happens so much in the others. Granted, like in I want to say it's Hand of the Baskervilles with the deductions of the cane. It's sort of like he dismisses basically everything Watson says, and he's like, "By your mistakes, you have actually pointed me towards better answers."
yeah.
As
But
which
like
is sort of
even
dismissive of
like
Watson, but it's like he's still kind about it, and it's also like
even then,
their
it's like
second
he's trying to
thing.
compliment him.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And also, if you think about where it is in the timeline, it is their chronologically their second story that we've got. So he's only been exposed for a handful of cases overall to Holmes's methods. So he is still very much a beginner at that point, as opposed to the Solitary Cyclist, where he's sort of like has come back to it and he's annoyed that Watson has proven to be supposedly useless. Granted, he then gets punched in the face and doesn't come out much better himself the next day.
yeah,
But it suggests a shift of the character, and this might be shaped by the fact that I know Arthur Conan Doyle did not like writing Sherlock stories by this point because it's after the point at which he killed him off, and it's like he's been brought him back even though he doesn't want to. So it's just like it could be just I know Arthur Conan Doyle isn't happy necessarily writing these, and that's shaping it into making me think that Holmes is being made more unlikable because Doyle wants people to let Holmes go so he can write what he actually wants to write.
yeah.
Right. But, yeah, they're interesting. There's the Dancing Men is the one that adds the most new things to it, I would say, because we don't see Holmes break a code before,
No.
or and he's not so much breaking a code as he's translating an unknown language. But it's a code in the way of it's a language that's used by English speakers that follows English rules. Because it's just like this is an English letter, so it's not a cipher. Yeah, code is probably the right one for it, but yeah, it's the one that has sort of like the most meat of sort of like adding new mystery to it. I would say with the Solitary Cyclist, I feel that less was actually figured out by Sherlock as to what was going on. Is like he doesn't actually explain any of sort of like what's going on until like he's been led there by Carruthers as well, and we physically see what's happening. So it actually feels like the Solitary Cyclist, he doesn't actually solve the mystery. He's just there when the mystery sort of blows up.
Yeah,
Thinking about it.
yeah,
Yeah. He has pieces, but he hasn't actually had time to put them together yet.
yeah. I think that's what made me feel like he was the guest in someone else's story. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
But which if that is actually the case and it's not sort of us looking at it after we've described described this, and we've probably missed out several important bits.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah, I think that is a first sort of overall, because it's like we come in and it's like, yes, he's figured it out. How did he do it? Well done, polite,
Golf clap.
clapping, yeah. So yeah, that is the
Yep.
the thing. So
So
yeah,
I think that's probably all we've got for you this week. Yeah.
yeah, we will return next week with presuming no other heat wave, with the adventures of the Priory School of Black Peter and Charles Augustus Milverton.
Yeah, the Lars Mikkelsen character in the BBC version was Charles Augustus Magnuson.
Yeah, which is what tripped me up. Or the adventure of that guy who plays Grand Admiral Thrawn to Star Wars fans.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good in Sherlock adaptation, the BBC Sherlock. But anyway, those are next week's. But
join us tomorrow night if you miss us before then, for Assassin Sunday, where we'll be continuing the Legends mode of Ghost of Tsushima. It's a bit of a departure.
Yes.
That'll be on the Ollie Johnston Plays YouTube channel, which you can find somewhere on this one, I reckon. And if you're on Twitch, same channel. I only have the one.
Yeah. We have 4 story mode stories on Legends mode to do, which we'll see if we can get through those in 2 hours, and possibly even show you what a survival mode is like.
Yeah. Oh, I had a go of that today.
How did it go?
I didn't make it through the whole thing, but it went better than first times have previously gone.
Yeah. Yeah, I've recently I've done a couple of gold ones since our last one, so my gear is slightly higher than it was before last week as well.
Yeah. Right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. We will see you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.